Hey, this is Brad with Ball Down South Sports Wave. We are going live. Going to do a live this afternoon for our Week 7 wrap up and live chat show. So if anybody comes on, we encourage you to comment and like and share this. You can join, you can speak, you can talk. So we encourage you to do that. We're going to do this and break down all the games from Week 7. And got a couple of guys maybe that's going to join me on this here in just a few minutes. And we'll kind of get started. Right now, while it's just me, talk about the UK game just for a second. Last night they played with intensity and tenacity and a little fire, and they did not do that without Levis the week before. The second half against South Carolina was about as pitiful as I've seen Kentucky play in a while. So it was good to see last night that they played with that tenacity and fire last night and won a big game. So beating Mississippi State when they were favored at our place was a big win last night. So John Roberts has joined me. John?
Yep.
How are you?
What's up?
Hey, man.
I'm doing all right.
What'd you think about the big week of games last night or yesterday?
There was a lot of big games going on.
There was.
Obviously, the Tennessee-Bama one was the one that most everybody was paying attention to. But, there was USC and Utah. There was Kentucky, Mississippi State was a pretty decent one to be paying attention to just because it's in the SEC. Auburn, Ole Miss, even though, it kind of got close a little bit, but never really was.
Hey, I think Auburn made a pretty decent showing out of that. They scored 34 points against them.
Yep. Still got some turnover woes that directly led to points, which was, something that still hasn't been fixed. But for the most part, they at least showed up. They played offense. They scored points in the second half. Didn't look like they were just rolling over in the second half. So,
right.
But they did.
Is that the most points they scored this year so far? 34?
34, no, because I think they put more on. I would go look at the first two games of the year.
Yeah.
Because they might have scored more, especially like in the first game.
I think they played like Mercer more or something, didn't they?
Correct.
Yeah.
But, against the Power 5, yes.
Right. Of course, everybody's going to be talking about the Tennessee-Bama game yesterday, and rightfully so. They should. But that was a big game. So, and you're down in Alabama, so I know you're eager to talk about all them Bama fans and how upset and just disappeared they do, whining, crying, that kind of stuff.
Twitter is blown up and it's awesome. I love it when the Bama Twitter just goes sideways.
Has anybody heard from Funny Maine yet? That's what I want to know.
I haven't seen anything from him yet, but did you see the thing I posted into the group? The one where it was the guys from or Josh from the SEC shorts.
No, I haven't seen the SEC short yet.
Well, no. I sent the thing into the group where it was it's just him all beat up.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like laying in like a hospital bed or something like that. And he's just like, oh.
All right, Mason's joined us now. Hey, Mason.
How's it going?
Going pretty good, man. We're just kind of having a little fun here. Hey, there's Hammonds, too. Hammonds has joined us as well. What's up, man?
Not much, man.
All right, we're just kind of going to talk about the games from yesterday. Actually, over the whole weekend, there were some games on Thursday night that was pretty good. West Virginia won a big game on Thursday night over the weekend. Big for them. It's Neil Brown doesn't win too many of those games, and he beat Baylor, so that's a big win for them. Mason, you would agree with that, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. That was a great win. I honestly did not expect them to win that game.
Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, West Virginia has been in a lot of those games. They just hadn't been able to actually finish it off and pull out the win. And that was a big win for Neil Brown in West Virginia on Thursday night, I thought. So we were just kind of talking about the Alabama and Tennessee game. I asked John Roberts if anybody had heard from Funny Maine yet, if he was okay, if he made it through yesterday or not. And I don't know, does everybody know who Funny Maine is?
He was one of the first guys that started doing those videos post like a game or something like that, where you're talking about like fans' reaction to whatever.
Right, and
And
he's really big down in Bama. He's
right,
a
yeah,
big
and
Bama
so
fan,
like
and he does all the Bama stuff, but he also goes through all the games of the SEC and has little funny comments and
right.
stuff. But he's a huge Bama fan, and I was just messing with John Roberts, just making sure that Funny Main's okay from the loss yesterday.
I'm
Right?
actually about to go look up his Twitter, see if I see anything.
Yeah.
See when the last time he tweeted something. About an hour ago. He's I guess it looks like he's a New Orleans Saints fan, so
Oh, so he's
he's wrapped
mad.
up in that game right now.
Oh, okay. Well, Hammonds,
Yeah.
you was at the UK game yesterday. How was the atmosphere, man?
It was good.
Did you have a
You
good
know, it
did you have a good night there? It's better than last week, right?
it was a lot better. You know, last night, I wouldn't say Levis won that game. I think Chris Rodriguez won that game. Basically with his legs, and the defense won that game pretty much.
I think DeAndre Square had a heck of a game last night
He
myself.
did, and the defense played really well. Will Rogers was never comfortable in the pocket. He was always running outside the pocket. He just never was comfortable to be able to make the passes that he usually makes. And it was just a big win overall, for Kentucky, especially after losing to Ole Miss and South Carolina like they did. It's been hard to get Levis and Rodriguez in the backfield at the same time.
It has
This
been
year,
so far this year, yeah.
it's been a little rough, but I felt like that they played a really good football game last night.
One thing I want to mention to you while we're talking about the Kentucky thing, and nobody's probably going to mention this a whole lot, but Juton McClain last night had 78 yards, all-purpose yards, and I thought he was pretty big last night as well.
Yeah, he made a few little plays.
Between the run game and the passing game, he had 78 yards. So I thought that was a pretty big deal last night as well, and not too many people's going to mention that probably. Mason, how about you in the Oklahoma game yesterday? You want to mention a little bit about that? Talk about that?
Well, our offense looked 20 times better now that we have Gabriel in. We weren't playing a very good defense, but at least we put up some points, right? Better than zero.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. That's why I figured I'd give you the floor. You can talk about the Oklahoma game for a few minutes.
I was going to say the defense is still it was better. It's not good. It's not decent. Long ways to go there, but I guess Venables was hands-on all week with the defense, and it showed that it looked at least a little bit better than past weeks, I guess.
Right. And he probably should have been hands-on last week the way things went, so.
Couldn't have been any worse. Also, if I'm Michigan, I am pissed about the new rankings because you beat a top 10 team and Kentucky still jumps you. That's kind of crazy. Or not Kentucky, Tennessee still jumps you to number 3. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think that Tennessee should have jumped them myself either. Not the top. I'm not even sure that they should have jumped Clemson myself, but I mean, maybe.
Well, let's go over who each of these teams have beaten, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that it's worth jumping. I was just saying, let's just see who everybody's beaten. I mean, so Michigan just beat number 10,
Right.
a team. I mean, look, I know they drilled Auburn at Auburn, but Penn State's still not great.
Michigan did put up 400 yards rushing on the number 6 run defense in the nation, though.
Yeah, and they did beat up on them, but that team's still not great. Clemson, they've been steady this whole time, so not. But again, I don't know who they've beaten. I mean, Florida State's been, more of a surprise team this year, but who else is? I guess Wake Forest, right? So that was somebody that was worth a dang, at least in offense. Offensively they are, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anybody else.
Well,
who else has Clemson put up against? I mean, Tennessee right now.
Well,
still,
they played NC State. They beat NC State.
Yeah.
They beat Wake Forest.
Right. Okay. And then, as far as Tennessee beats Bama, which this is probably the most penalized Bama team in, I don't know, a very long time, if not ever. Who else have they knocked off, so far? Because they haven't played. I mean, we haven't played just a ton of games. We've only done half a season, and obviously they've played some non-conference games. But as far as a single most game, this was probably the more impressive win. Versus where the other top 10 teams didn't have maybe the most impressive win. This is probably the most impressive win out of the 3 or 4 of those that won against top 10 teams. But
well, I mean, when you put up 52 points against Bama, that's pretty impressive.
Like I said, it's pretty impressive, and I think the AP voters just reacted to that. Not necessarily, whether. But I mean, I'm looking at I'm just trying to think about who all everybody's played and beaten, since then, because obviously every one of these teams are unbeaten right now, so they haven't lost anybody. So
I was going to say, if we're going to look at that, though, I mean, who has Ohio State played?
Correct.
Where does that come in?
That would be one
they beat Notre Dame.
Right.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's not good.
Which Marshall and Stanford have beaten Notre Dame too. Great.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I'm saying. Like, Ohio State's still at number 2. Yeah. You jump them over, Michigan and Clemson, but you don't jump them over Ohio State. It just doesn't make very much sense.
Yeah. No, you're right about that one. That one doesn't make sense. Ohio State's the one that just doesn't make sense. Everything else,
well, I mean, Georgia hasn't played anybody either, really. So, I mean, none of the top teams.
Right. What who all in the SEC have they beaten? Vanderbilt, Auburn, who else?
Yeah, Missouri,
South Carolina,
Missouri.
Yeah, they had a very lackluster performance against Missouri. So yeah, I mean, they put up points against Vanderbilt. Great, awesome.
All right, Hammond, you back in here?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, man.
I don't know either, man. I'm not sure what happened. It kicked you out for some reason, and I don't know why. So I'm glad you found it and got back in here, man.
No, but what I was saying before it logged me out, I said I'm really surprised with Illinois how they've come on, and Brett Bielema's second season. You know, they beat Wisconsin, Minnesota. Trying to think, Iowa.
Yeah, they beat Iowa.
And they've taken control of that Big Ten West, you know, and they forced 3 turnovers yesterday, and they only allowed just 38 yards passing. And Tommy DeVito threw, I think, for 252 yards and a score. But I was saying, you know, he's probably going to be in line for a National Coach of the Year, but with the way Josh Heupel's doing, he's probably going to win it. But he needs to have some votes, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, Illinois is having a heck of a year coming from what they did last year. They was falling short in a lot of games. They had a bunch of close games. I think they were like 3-5 or something in games decided by 7 points or less, or something like that last year. And you know, they're turning that around and winning a whole lot of these games this year. So
Yeah, my other team is TCU. Nobody really thought TCU would be what they are right now. I think they just got put 8th in the AP poll, and you know, they come back from double digits in the Oklahoma State game, I think twice, and that's impressive. And Max Duggan is a really good football player.
yeah, I mean, you know, I agree.
And all of y'all called for Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Yes, I'm aware.
Sometimes it
I'm
don't
aware,
work.
Roberts.
All of us also hyped up the Bama defense. So
You're right. We did.
Hey, Bama's defense, I said it yet last night. I don't want to hear nothing else about how great Bama's defense is.
Tennessee's offense is just generational good. Like, it's just so good. Like,
I don't care if it's that good or not. They shouldn't be putting up 52 points against Bama.
I smell a little hatred there.
I'm just saying they should. It's Alabama. They shouldn't be giving up 52 points. They were supposed to have one of the best defenses in the country this year, right?
I tell you, man, I'll be honest with
That's
you.
supposed to be Bama's best team.
Yeah. This was supposed to be their revenge tour from last year, remember?
Tell you who I think are some frauds, though. I was telling somebody yesterday, you know, Notre Dame and Penn State. You know, Penn State did what they did early in the year, but what I understand is they pump them up and they get them to a big game and they fall apart. It happens every single year, and I don't know.
Well, now,
Who?
Notre Dame, the beginning of the season told us that Notre Dame wasn't very good to begin with.
Yeah, but a lot of people pumped them up, said they was going to win 8 or 9 games, and you know, I think they're 1-4.
Well, I mean, they won a couple of games, I know. Mason,
I think maybe 2.
what's their record? I know they won a couple. But
They could be at least 2-4, if not.
they're 3-3.
3-3.
3-3.
What's so bad is how Stanford's pitiful. Like,
They are. Stanford's not a good team. I agree.
And they shouldn't be losing to Marshall either.
Nope.
Marshall has went off the rails ever since they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah. A lot of these teams. I mean, Georgia Southern, after beating Nebraska, come back and lost like three games. I know they beat James Madison.
I was about to say they beat James Madison.
They did. I know they beat James Madison Saturday, but they also lost 3 games after beating Nebraska. So.
Right.
I'm just shocked that Coastal Carolina got beat like they did yesterday. You know, they had hopes of maybe going to a New Year's Six and just fell on their face. They got beat by, I think, 28 points to Old Dominion.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't lose games like that and expect to get to New Year's Six Bowl.
All right, so let's talk about the ACC for just a minute. Is there any other team in the ACC that's going to be able to challenge Clemson or no?
Syracuse.
Do you think they can
I think they got a shot.
to challenge Clemson?
They're 6-0.
I
Clemson's
know
got a
they
run
are.
defense, so that's basically all you need
Yeah,
to take out Syracuse to stop that run.
I
but
think Clemson is still at the top of the class. The gap may have gotten closer to Clemson, but it may have shrunk, but it's still Clemson.
I'm just saying, guys, we're at week 7, and after 7 weeks, it looks like Clemson is the clear class of ACC.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
Syracuse, I agree with Hammonds. They're 6-0, and they're playing really well, and they look good. I'm not going to say they don't. I've been a fan of them all season long, the way they've played and looking, but I'm still not convinced that they can challenge Clemson. Anybody else?
They play Saturday, so we'll find out.
Right.
Yep.
And it's at Clemson.
It's at Clemson.
Yeah.
Well, they've done it before up there, but that was against a
Mason,
quarterback that wasn't that great.
how about the Big 12? You want to talk about the Big 12 for a minute? Where do you think the Big 12 is at right this minute?
It's TCU's to lose. I mean, that was a great game. Oklahoma State just did Oklahoma State things in the second half. Didn't come out, played sloppy, and allowed TCU right back in the game. And then just some struggles.
I mean,
I don't know.
Baylor's definitely not the team that everybody thought they was going to be. Oklahoma has dropped some games. They're not, as far as preseason hype is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
I guess Kansas State still maybe has an outside shot, right?
Who's the other team that would play TCU in the championship? Who do you think will be the other team?
If Ewers stays healthy, I think maybe Texas. But that's a big if, and Ewers has to stay healthy.
Right.
And Iowa State, I know they barely beat Iowa State, but Iowa State's not known for getting blown out. They just don't get blown out. All their games are always close normally, unless they're playing Iowa. But, I mean, I thought it was a great game by both teams. The end of the game was questionable by some Iowa State fans with a no targeting call, but that's for another day.
Yeah, that might be one of our no-fly zone topics this week, the whole targeting call stuff.
Bama fans are going nuts over targeting.
Yeah, we might cover that this week. That's going to be one of the big topics, I think.
That one's the Bama stuff is hilarious. Now again, the thing that I was pointing out last night was USC and Utah. In those two back-to-back plays, I didn't think that either one of them were targeting. I felt like when they finally, went and looked at it, they saw that it wasn't targeting and they ruled against it. But like the Bama one, like at best it's roughing the quarterback or it's a late hit, personal foul late hit, but it's not targeting. As far as the one that the guy's arm hits the guy, hits Bryce's neck or face, maybe, but probably not. But
speaking of that USC game, Go ahead. I was gonna say I was surprised that Utah went for 2 at the end there. That took some guts.
Yeah, that took a lot of guts, man.
And it's a glancing blow by the helmet, but for the most part, it's a shoulder. The guy's shoulder goes into it. That's why it wasn't targeting. So, as far as
I will say this.
Bama fans keep.
I will say this about that in the game stuff that was a questionable pass interference. The one with 4 minutes to go, and Alabama picked it off.
Right.
That was a questionable pass interference because I felt like he made a play on the ball, and there wasn't a lot of holding. I don't think it was. Both of them was pushing, and there's sometimes you just let that go.
Yeah. No, you're right on that one. I was hoping I was going to find a way to put the replay of the game on so I could kind of go to that play so I could see it over again. But all I've seen are just still shots and haven't gotten to see like a video of that play. Trying to remember that play itself. All I keep seeing up on the Twitter right now is just the hit to Bryce Young that everybody keeps calling targeting. So
the Big Ten, we'll talk about it for just a second. Big Ten's clearly Ohio State's to lose, but I also think Michigan is right there. Does anybody else agree with that?
I mean, I think Michigan's the other team, and they won it last year.
Right.
So, I mean,
I'm just not convinced that Michigan's offense can beat a really good football team. You know, they beat up on Penn State, which ain't really good, I don't think.
so it'd be nice if that really good football team played other good football teams. I mean, we know they're good. We just don't
yeah,
know
like they
exactly
need to
how
play
good they are.
somebody like Ohio State, somebody that we can just get a.
Well, they will, but that's the
No, that's what
last
I'm
game of the
talking about.
season.
Ohio State doesn't play anybody. You know, it's them that I want to have play somebody.
Well, Michigan don't either until the end. They play each other, and that's probably when we're going to find out.
And that's why the SEC is the best, because each week you got teams playing harder opponents every single week. And that's why I still think the SEC is better than the Big Ten, but that's just my opinion. So
I agree with that, honestly, because Michigan State, they're not a good football team. Wisconsin this year, honestly, they're not a great football team. I mean, Penn State, I know they're still ranked. I mean, heck, I think they're still ranked like 13th or something. But do they deserve a 13th ranking? I don't think so.
by the way, the AP poll just come out.
All right, tell us what it is.
All right, just give me just a second. Gotta
I've
get
got it
to
right
it.
here.
Tennessee's, Georgia's 1. 2 is Ohio State. 3 is Tennessee. Tennessee got 15 first place votes. That's pretty wild.
Well, I mean,
4,
they beat Bama, so
4 Michigan, 5 Clemson, 6 Alabama, 7 Ole Miss, 8 TCU, 9 is UCLA, 10 Oregon, which they play this week, and game day's going there. Oklahoma State's 11, 12 is USC, 13 is Wake Forest, 14 is 15 is Utah, 16 is Penn State, 17 is 18 Illinois, 19 Kentucky, 20th Texas, 21 Cincinnati, 22 North Carolina, 23 NC State, 24 Mississippi State, and 25 is Tulane.
I'm not so sure that NC State needs to be still in the poll either.
I don't either. And here's some notes, just some poll points. The Crimson Tide had its string of 40 straight appearances in the top 5 snap. It was the longest active streak in the country.
Right.
Let's see here. The Vols received 15 first place votes. This is their best ranking since 2005 when they was at number 3. Or no, wait a minute. Their last time Tennessee was ranked this high was in 2001 where they reached the SEC championship. I think they played LSU, I think.
Well, that was.
They weren't this high in 2004 when they played in the SEC championship game.
No, I think they was like 10th or 15th, I think.
Okay, because I know in 2007, like that team wasn't great, but they
Michigan,
made the SEC championship game in that year too, but they weren't great.
I don't really believe Michigan leaped Clemson. I don't agree with that, but
Well, I'm not 100% on board with Tennessee leaping either one of them, really. I mean, myself, but I mean, they definitely agree to be top 5. after beating Bama.
I feel there's some animosity there.
And why do you keep saying that, man?
Because you dislike them.
I do dislike Tennessee. I'm not going to hide from that, but I can be, when the season, when we're this far into the season, and Michigan and Clemson have been ranked the whole time, and they're still winning. Michigan yesterday, I mean, they won fairly impressive over a top 10 team. You can say what you want to about Penn State, but they were a ranked top 10 team yesterday. So, I mean, and won fairly impressive over them. Now, do I agree that Penn State should have been ranked that high? No, I don't, but they were. So, it's still a fairly impressive win.
Well, maybe that's what everybody else is thinking. They didn't agree that they should be that ranked that high anyway.
Well, I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at with it.
Only reason why Tennessee is ranked is because of their offense. They have a unstoppable offense. They can move the football. Their defense made a few stops here and there, but if they had a defense, Tennessee, they'd win the whole thing.
Well, and they still might. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're not a great team. They are. They're a great team. But I just don't think that when you go from where they are coming from, that you should jump a few of these teams. And I just named two. That's it.
Well, they haven't been there in a while, and they're, and a lot of it has to do with the fans, and they haven't really seen much since Butch Jones. So they're going to pump him.
Butch Jones only had his 15 minutes there. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, he did have his 15 minutes there, I guess you could say, but it was very fleeting. It disappeared pretty quick.
We'll find out how good they are in a couple of weeks. They play Kentucky and Georgia back to back, so.
Exactly, they do, and I'm impressed with what they've done. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not impressed with what they've done against LSU, and then of course putting up 52 and beating Alabama. That's impressive.
What makes it so bad is, everybody says their fan base. Well, their fan base when they're losing is pretty bad, but when they start winning again, they're going to be insufferable.
Oh yeah, just watch what their baseball team and their basketball, like what they're like when their baseball and their basketball team were going.
It's just going to be. We're just going to have to deal with it.
And Hammonds, why you got to call me out just because I don't like a team?
It's not, but I just feel like that you're discrediting their win against Alabama is what I think.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
You show it more than everybody else.
I show what?
That you dislike a team more than anybody else.
Look at it like this.
Show your biases.
I get that it was Penn. I get it was Penn State.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Roberts.
I get. See, you talk about Penn State, Michigan. Alabama's way better than Penn State. That's what I'm having an argument with. You're saying that Penn State is a really good team, but Alabama's better than Penn State.
Well, of course they are.
And that win's going to look more impressive than beating a Big Ten school.
I'm not saying that Alabama's not better than Penn State. I didn't say that.
No, but you're comparing the wins. Michigan beating a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team.
But I don't think the rankings didn't say that they were a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team. That's what I'm saying.
But I don't think they're as good as everybody says they are. They're not.
They're there because other teams lost.
Now, I'm not saying that I agree with the rankings. I'm just saying that's what the rankings say.
Yeah. They're there because other teams lost.
I just think the win over Alabama trumps that because
Mason, you're in the Big Ten country. Tell me that Penn State being ranked meant something, right? Where they were.
It meant something. Yeah. They're not a bad team by any means. I don't
They're not bad, no.
I don't necessarily think after watching the Michigan game that they deserved to be in the top 10, but they had them in the top 10. That's all. I mean,
Right.
whether we say that they were or not, other people saw differently than us, so they had to do something to get in the top 10. Or somebody big had to lose enough games for them to slide in, but
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, I
That
feel like
number
that's
6
what was
rush defense in
happening
the
because
country and let up 400 yards.
they were undefeated. They were undefeated sitting at number 10 versus being undefeated sitting at number 5 or 6. You know, so that's where you can kind of tell that people were hesitant to put them in the top 10, but there were enough teams in front of them that lost, that had worse records, that they couldn't justify putting them ahead of putting those teams ahead of Penn State. So Penn State sits at 10, before that game, and then they got beat by a team that was better.
Right.
So, but I don't know about, did they deserve to be in the top 10? Well, I mean, they did everything they were supposed to do to get there as far as winning their games, but they still probably weren't a top 10 team.
Right. Because they were winning the games that they had. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that what they were still riding on was that they went to Auburn and absolutely destroyed them. And I think that's what they've been everybody's like, well, look at that Auburn win. Well, I mean, Auburn's not good. So you can kind of discount that. You can say, well, they went in and they beat a bad team. They went on the road and beat a bad team, but it's still a bad team.
Well, going back to Alabama, too, I mean, Alabama, I don't know if they're as good as everybody thought either. They've had 3 really close games this year. Lost one of them. The Texas game, they won they beat Texas backup quarterback in the second half.
Right.
I mean,
okay, so talking about Alabama and then maybe them not being as good as they are. So the Power 5 conference games that they have had has all been down to like a last score within 7 points, except for Vanderbilt. That's the only game, Power 5 conference, that they have really separated themselves from.
Hey, when Clemson won the national title a few years ago, were they beating teams? There was a year where Clemson was barely beating teams, and everybody was like, "Clemson's not that good. Clemson's
Yeah,
not
I
that good."
remember
But did
that
they
year.
not go to the national title that year?
I think so.
And win it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they weren't. Everybody thought that they were a bad team, but they were just somehow, some way, they got past, whoever was right in front of them. And then they went on and they won the national title. That offense, I mean, it was the defense that was winning those games that year. I don't think it was the offense that year.
Well, you're talking about with the Clemson year, right?
Yeah, the Clemson one. And then if you go and you could still look at, like, say, Tennessee, whose defense isn't that great, but they're still winning games because their offense. You can look at the 2010 Auburn team. That was not a good defense. It's not a great defense.
My live thing is screwing up today. I don't know what's wrong with it today.
Yeah, I just let you back in, man. I seen where you was trying to get back in. So
I will say this: I'm watching the NFL today, and the Packers are about as bad as you can get.
hey, man, don't be talking about my Packers.
They're bad now, I'm telling you.
I've said it all along. I didn't expect this year to be great for them. So
Well, I'm not saying that because I'm just saying, they're tied at 3 with the Jets.
Listen,
the Jets aren't a bad team, though, this year.
They're not. I'm not saying that, but at the end of the day, you're at home against the Jets, and you should be
there's been a lot
scoring.
of ugly NFL games this year so far, in my opinion. I think the NFL games this year so far compared to the college game is way far and above better. I think the NFL games, a lot of them have been ugly and boring.
This game deserves to be a Thursday night game.
I think Thursday night games need to be scrapped. I think Thursday night games need to be scrapped altogether. Like it's bad football every single week. And what's crazy is the Falcons are beating the 49ers today. My goodness.
Hey, going back to college for just a second here, I want to give a shout out again to Troy. Troy won a big game again yesterday, and John Summerall's got them boys playing down there, and I just want to give a shout out to them because he is turning some heads at Troy in his first season down there. So, and Roberts, you're not far from there, so
A
right,
little over an hour, about an hour
right,
and a half, 2 hours
yeah. But
from where they are.
you're hearing some buzz from Troy. That's what they're doing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a buzz about Troy, but I'm also sitting right where UAB. I'm like 5 minutes from UAB's campus. So.
Right. I know you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there. They won a big game again yesterday, and he's doing a heck of a job. He's one of my favorite guys that came from Kentucky, and you know, I just think he's doing a heck of a job down there. So, first year head coach.
Rich Rod won another game yesterday. They played a bad team though.
Yeah.
So, but he's at Jacksonville State.
Okay.
So, which is also another about an hour and a half away from where I'm at.
Right.
So, yep.
Mason, you got anybody you want to shout out?
Not necessarily. One thing I wanted to touch on is during the Oklahoma game with Oklahoma's New Jerseys, the announcers kept saying that they could barely read the numbers. And then they were saying the same thing about TCU's jerseys. And they were saying that maybe the Kansas players couldn't identify who they're supposed to be blocking and this and that. Do you guys think that played into either one of those games at all?
So, was there ever a penalty assessed on that one?
No, there wasn't.
Because I can't remember. Auburn played somebody that wore like some smoke type jerseys and had the numbers where you couldn't read them from the press box, and there was a penalty assessed right at the opening kickoff. That it was like a 15-yard penalty.
Right.
So,
I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the game, Mason, so it's kind of hard for me. I didn't actually see them wearing the uniforms on the field. It's kind of hard for me to give a real good opinion about that. So, anybody else see the game and know what Mason's talking about?
I mean, I had the game on, but I wasn't I was only just paying attention to every 2 seconds I looked down and there was a score, it seemed like. But I wasn't paying very close attention. I had, I think I put in there what my screens were looking like, at least at night. And I had, cause I'll do where I've got 4 games going on the TV. And so I was doing that during the morning games as well with Oklahoma. And
I mean, that's one thing I was going to say. I mean, if he's talking about not being able to see the players' jerseys and stuff, I mean, heck, it was 11 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock game. So, I mean, it was broad daylight. It wasn't like at nighttime where the light's shining down and really glaring.
The issue is that they wore the smoke gray jerseys and then with the matte helmets, but the numbers were really reflective on the jersey.
Right.
So with the sun coming down on them in Oklahoma, at some times you couldn't tell who was catching the ball because it was just beaming off of their reflective numbers.
Right.
So, yeah. And Kansas was kind of, I don't know, the coach said something about it at halftime. And then even the fans, Oklahoma has 2 white receivers and Stoops and I forget his name, a brand new freshman. And the freshman caught the ball 3 times and all the fans are cheering Stoops.
Nah.
So I don't think anybody could see who was catching the ball. It was just kind of weird.
Right.
That's hilarious.
You would think that under the lights with shining down would maybe cause some glare and stuff. Of course, I guess the sun, if it's right over top, can do that too. So it's a little weird, right?
Yep.
All right. So mix up in the top 10. We've got another big week of games. Hammonds, you want to kind of go through a little bit of the upcoming games for next week, for week 8?
Let's see here. There's Syracuse and Clemson play the early game Saturday at noon. Iowa goes to Ohio State, which I don't think Iowa's going to be able to handle Ohio State.
The last time they played, didn't Iowa win 55-0 or 55 to something? One of these past few years.
Yeah, no, that was
Not Purdue.
That was Purdue.
I thought that was Purdue that won by a lot.
Kansas goes to Baylor. That could be a decent game, I think. West Virginia goes to Texas Tech. That could be a under radar game. Texas goes to Oklahoma State. You know, we'll find out how good Texas really is and how Oklahoma State will bounce back. Ole Miss goes to LSU. They're the CBS 3:30 game. I think, Ole Miss might have their first challenge this week. Granted, LSU's not really good, but it's different when you're playing in Death Valley. The biggest game of the week is UCLA, Oregon. Like, this is a big week for the Pac-12. If UCLA wins this game, there's a big opportunity for UCLA to get into the playoff discussion. But it's hard to win at Eugene, so Vandy plays Missouri this week.
Vandy in Missouri? Oh,
it's at Missouri. I mean, it's Mississippi State goes to Alabama. Texas A&M travels to South Carolina. There's not really a lot of good games this week. I mean, there's 3 or 4, but
that UCLA game, that'll be Chip Kelly's homecoming back to Oregon, won't it?
Yeah.
Is it at Oregon?
Yeah, it's at Oregon. Game day is going to be there.
Yeah.
Minnesota goes to Penn State, which I think Penn State will bounce back. I don't think Minnesota's as good as everybody thought they was.
Yeah, Thursday night, you get Troy at South Alabama.
Yeah, that'd be a good game.
Yeah.
And then Friday you get UAB at Western Kentucky.
Hey, that should be a good game too.
The most underrated game this week is Saturday night. Kansas State goes to TCU.
Yeah,
I think you'll find out. I mean, TCU's really good at home, but we'll see where Kansas State is. And if TCU wins that game, which they're already in line possibly to get to the Big 12 championship, but if TCU wins that game, I believe there's no doubt about they'll get there because their schedule is they play Kansas State, at West Virginia, Texas Tech at home, at Texas, at Baylor, and then they play Iowa State. So the 2 hard games are going to be at Texas and at Baylor. But if they can get by the others and just get 1 loss out of that, I think they got a shot at the Big 12.
Okay, so the UCLA-Oregon game, you said if UCLA wins, you think they would have a shot at the playoffs?
I do. They're ranked number 11th, and, I think that would be a big win, especially on the road with the way Oregon's playing right now. They're 5-1. They're playing really good, and
I think it could happen if there is some losses taken by TCU.
They are, but I think, too, UCLA can get a Rose Bowl berth with this if they win.
Yeah, they could definitely
as
get a
well.
Rose Bowl berth. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I
So,
agree with that. Yeah.
you know,
I'm just not sure that I'm ready to say that a Pac-12 team can crash the college football playoff party this year. I'm not sure
I'll tell
about
you,
that.
there's no team that's fell from grace more than Duke. They was what, 4-0?
Yeah,
They lost 3 straight, and then they have to go to Miami Saturday. Um, I think Miami beat Virginia Tech yesterday.
they did.
And Virginia Tech's not really good, so
Right.
Miami's not good at home either. So that could be a game that Duke could
And Duke
end up
just
winning.
lost by 3 points at North Carolina,
Yeah, so
38-35.
I mean, it's another game that's kind of off the radar is Memphis going to Tulane. That'd be a pretty good game because Memphis, I don't think they wouldn't even pick to. They was picked to lose to East Carolina, which they did lose, but they only lost by 2 points. And they was picked to
Tulane's
lose.
ranked for the first time since 1998.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big game for them at home.
Well, all
Was
right,
that
guys.
Sean King? Was that Sean King as the quarterback
Yeah, he was.
in '98?
He played for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but was that his years at Tulane?
It
I
may have been. I'd
believe.
have to look it up. I don't know.
Just wondered.
Mm,
Yeah.
I'll tell you who's got a big game really for the for their hopes of getting to the Big Ten championship is Purdue. They go to Wisconsin. If they can pull that game off, they would have at Wisconsin. They'd play Iowa at home, and then they would probably play Illinois for the chance to go to the Big Ten championship.
Right.
So in the winner gets a blowout by Ohio State basically, but I think because I don't think Michigan's going to beat Ohio State this year because it's at the shoe this year, and Ohio State's going to be looking for revenge after losing last year.
Well, Mason's been on Ohio State bandwagon all year, so I
I
know.
have too. So,
I
and I
know.
wasn't early. So.
No,
Oh,
I
I
know.
was coming into the year.
Yeah,
I've
Mason
been high
was.
on Ohio
Yeah,
State.
yeah. He's been telling me all year before the season started that he was on. He thought Ohio State was going to win it all. So, right,
Still
Mason.
stand by it. Oh yeah, I still stand by that. Until they prove me wrong.
Right. I figured you would. I didn't figure you'd change your mind on me.
And the good news, Kentucky's got a bye week this week.
Yeah, and
So
they
does
can
So
heal
Auburn.
up before.
I'm gonna enjoy football without having to worry about us
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
being beat up all week.
Oklahoma's on a bye too, so I could just sit back and watch all these other teams lose.
Hey, so all three of our teams are on a bye. Are you
Auburn's on a
serious?
bye too.
Yes.
Look at
Yeah.
that.
So we all got a bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can enjoy football this week without having to be
Hey,
stressed out.
I've enjoyed football. I don't get I don't get stressed out when Auburn gets beat because that's just the nature of Auburn.
What's
I've been
crazy
through
about
I've lived through enough Auburn that this doesn't bother me, which is why I can go and start really poking fun at other schools when they get overly venomous, after a loss, and I go
well,
just start
what's
poking them.
funny is yesterday we was listening to the game on the way to Lexington, Auburn, and Ole Miss, and there was Auburn radio guys was literally giving the referees the mumble jumble.
Yeah, well,
They It was
they are
really bad.
such homers. They are such homers. But I mean, that's what they should be. They're the they're the home radio, so like they should be as like homer as possible. I mean, one of them went to school there, what, about 30, 40 years ago, and the other one was a quarterback there. So
Right.
it's, I mean, you're looking at guys that went to school there and bleed orange and blue and have been, you know, working or doing something in the capacity for the school ever since they they graduated. So,
Right.
I mean,
I tell you, there was 2 plays that really, I think, changed the game. Was they had, I think Ole Miss had a false start on the running back and they didn't call it. And they had another play where they made they held a guy and the radio guys was giving him down the road. And I went back last night and rewatched it, and the false start penalty was pretty bad because the running back moved before
Before the snap.
And it was 3rd and 6 at that point, and they got the first down. That'd have been about 3rd and 12, 3rd and 11, and it would have made it a harder down. And Auburn was only down a touchdown at that point. So, and Tank Bigsby had a really big game yesterday. He played really well.
Hey, Auburn still had had too many turnovers in that game, and enough things that shot themselves in the foot that those 2 plays, while could have done something, wasn't going to be any sort of a factor into it when you start looking at, throwing interceptions, having, just again, random fumbles by the quarterback that just absolutely killed drives. And then Auburn had a bunch of, either false starts or just, any sort of, pre-snap penalty that just absolutely killed drives. And they've been doing that all season long. So it's, to me, it's those things have happened the entire season. And I mean, they haven't done anything to cut down on it. The only thing that they did this time was that they fed Tank a little bit more, where he finally, was able to break free, and I think he ran for like 100 and maybe like 180 yards or something like that. It was something stupid, but he ran for a ton of yards.
Yeah. Well, Chris Rodriguez reminded the world last night that he was a beast, and they fed him as well last night, which I was very grateful for. He had 31 carries, 197 yards, 2 TDs, and the very last carry, he bulldozed over people and got to like the half-yard line. Almost had 3.
The player of the weekend should be was it Jalen Hyatt for Tennessee?
Yeah.
6 receptions.
5 tutties.
6 receptions for 206 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You almost just would want him to drop the one pass that he didn't score a touchdown on, or otherwise, he could be a clear 5 for 5.
Yeah.
And give him that Arby's NIL deal right there. Let him to be the 5 for 5 guy. But right now, because of his name, he should have a Hyatt NIL deal right now. Tell him that it's a 5 touchdown instead of a 5-star rating, it's a 5 touchdown rating right there.
Yeah, it was a spectacular night for him, or day for him, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up week 7, start looking forward to week 8. And I appreciate y'all coming on. I always enjoy doing this with everybody. Anybody got anything, last little tidbit you want to add? Hammonds?
No, I'm good.
All right. Mason?
Just Boomer Sooner.
And John Roberts?
I'm looking forward to another great week of football.
Me too, man. Me too. I love doing this with you guys. I appreciate y'all coming on. We've been on about an hour. We'll try to do these live shows on Sundays, and we'll try to do them for about an hour. And y'all jump on with us. Anybody that's on here and sees us and wants to join, I do post on Twitter and Facebook. We do post where you can click and join us, and y'all pay attention to that. I am Brad BDS Wave on Twitter, and our Facebook is Ball Down South TV, or or BDS Sports Wave. And y'all can join us that way. And we appreciate you coming on. If you see us, hear us, like, share, follow, rate, and we would love to have you join in and join us each and every episode.